Hello and welcome to Clips section of India's most famous dentist. कम टाइम में अपनी लाइफ में ज्यादा वैल्यू ऐड करने के लिए इस क्लिप्स सेक्शन को जरूर चेक कीजिए।
पहले कुछ आपके बारे में, आपकी जर्नी, आपके शब्दों में जान लेते हैं।
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Karthik. It's a pleasure to be here, and more so for the reasons that you really want to do all this. But yeah, coming back to your question. So मेरी journey शुरू हुई एक छोटे से middle class family से, like everybody else. My father worked for in a government job. As anybody else at that age, when you're in 10th, 11th and 12th, right. You have the dream of being a doctor, and whenever you would say that I want to be a doctor, dentistry at that point in time was not your priority. Dentistry is probably at this point in time also is not a priority. However, so I did not get medicine. I could not get into MBBS. So I was pushed into BDS like anybody else even now.
Right, sir.
And that was in 1989, long back.
Okay.
I took admission in a college in a very small town in Haryana by the name of DAV Dental College. And I graduated from there in 1995.
Okay.
After that, of course, आगे क्या करना है, तो आगे उस टाइम पोस्ट ग्रेजुएशन का बहुत चलन नहीं था, बट स्टिल पोस्ट ग्रेजुएशन पीपल वुड वांट टू डू. सो उसके लिए फिर ऑल इंडिया एंट्रेंस होता था. ऑल इंडिया एंट्रेंस की तैयारी करी, बहुत लग के साल भर तैयारी करी, एंड फॉर्चुनेटली आई वाज एबल टू क्लियर ऑल इंडिया. और वो ऑल इंडिया क्लियर करके मैं एक छोटे से शहर से निकला हुआ, जन्मा पढ़ा, पहुंच गया बॉम्बे. So Bombay I did my post-graduation from Nair Dental College in Bombay. And that is where the entire outlook to dentistry for me changed.
Right, sir.
Bombay was the place where I got in touch with who's who in dentistry at that point in time. And that's when I realized that dentistry certainly is not as bad a profession as it was made out to be. People in dentistry in Bombay were doing fantastically well. They were roaming around in probably best of the cars. The dentist, the who's who I could get in touch with, were treating the who's who of all the glamour industry that you talk about. And that's where I realized that dentistry has a lot of potential in it. Anyhow, so I finished my post-graduation in 1999. And 1998, sorry. And after that, and worked very hard, like any young boy would, who wanted to make something out of the profession. And after 1998, I got in touch somehow with Professor Van Dyke, who was at Boston University at that point in time. He had come to India for a conference in Chennai. So my godfather, Dr. Kumar Swami, introduced me to Dr. Van Dyke. And then with Dr. Van Dyke from Chennai, I spent 3 days with him, taking him to Agra and all that stuff. Right. And that's where I realized what international dentistry is all about.
Okay.
So I really pursued him. At that point in time, I realized that if I have to really stand apart in this profession of dentistry, the West is probably the place I need to go to and get trained myself into further things that dentistry had to offer. Anyways, cutting long story short, so I was given an opportunity to work with Professor Van Dyke at Boston University as his postdoc fellow. That was in the year 1999.
Okay.
And I still remember the first flight out of Delhi to Boston was my first flight ever.
Okay.
So, and it was an amazing experience, and the day I reached Boston, Dr. Van Dyke, along with Dr. Alpdagan Kantarchi, a Turkish guy, a beautiful, great friend of mine now, both of them were there at the airport to receive me. So, and all of a sudden, a guy coming from Yamunanagar and then spending some time in Bombay, and all of a sudden, you are sent to a place like Boston, and then he was there to receive me, and he was there in his car, obviously, and that was the first time I sat in a convertible car, also because he was driving a BMW convertible.
You actually got the glamour.
So now dentistry was unraveling. I could understand that this is Dr. Van Dyke is a dentist, after all. And so I had a beautiful tenure with Dr. Van Dyke for almost an year and a half. And that's when a friend of mine, who was an Indian, was at Boston University doing her master's there. She came to me, saying that there is an ITI scholarship available. They chose around 8, at that time it was 8 scholars from all over the world. And they were sent for 1 year to the chosen centers.
Okay.
So she said that you should apply. It was a very ambitious thought for her to think that I probably was a suitable candidate. Anyhow, she forced me to apply, and I did apply.
Right.
And when you have to fill in the center, I filled Harvard University as one of the centers there, because that was a listed center for ITI scholarship. And I applied. I just applied for the heck of applying it, knowing definitely, surely that I'm not going to get it. You cannot be amongst the top 8 in the world to get a paid scholarship. So it was not happening for me, and I was very sure about it. Anyhow, but because Harvard was in Boston, I was in Boston with Boston University at that point in time. So I wrote an email to Professor H.P. Weber, who was at Harvard University heading the implant program there. It was basically on implant fellowship.
Right.
So I wrote an email to him. I said, I'm in Boston here, and if you can spare some time, I have applied for this scholarship, and if you can spare some time, I'll come over and meet you. He said, all right, you come over. But I'll have, say, around 20 minutes for you. I said, fine. So then I went there to his office at Longwood, at Cambridge, where the Harvard School of Dental Medicine was.
Okay.
And we started chatting. And that 20-minute, believe it or not, that 20-minute extended to almost close to an hour. And we were enjoying our discussion. We as Indians like to speak a lot about ourselves.
Yes.
And that's exactly what I did. But we enjoyed the discussion.
Right.
And 2 months down the line, I received an email that, congratulations, you have been selected for ITI fellowship at Harvard School with a $30,000 worth of scholarship. I had to read it.
Top 8 students.
Top 8 students. I had to read it like 10 times to see what was written in it. And of course, I called up immediately back home and then, after that, I went to Harvard, spent a year working with Professor Weber, having graduated from India in Perio. There was absolutely zero implant experience. And here I was at the Makkah at Harvard, into the implant department, and looking, seeing, watching, eventually doing implants with probably the best hands and the brains in implant dentistry that was available at that time. Professor Weber, Professor Myron Nevins, Mark Nevins, you name it, and they were there. And that was a beautiful experience, wonderful experience. And then,
कैसी लगी क्लिप? अच्छी लगी? तो इसे शेयर करना ना भूलें। ऐसा ही कंटेंट देखने के लिए हमारे इस YouTube चैनल को सब्सक्राइब जरूर कीजिए। हम आपके लिए ऐसा ही वैल्यू एड करने वाला और आपको इंस्पायर करने वाला कंटेंट लाते रहेंगे।